Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. If you're in Britain, you'll know that it's hot. God, my God, it's hot. But yeah, it's hot. In a few months' time, we'll be moaning that it's too cold, so I'm not going to go into a flat-out rant against the weather, but Christ, it's hot. Anyway, let's talk about Josh Taylor. Obviously, he's defeated at the weekend by Teofimo Lopez. Terrific performance by Lopez. When you consider what he's got going on in his life with his divorce and trying to get custody or joint custody of his kid, for him to put on a performance like that was very, very impressive. Got to admire the man. And Taylor, yeah, I wasn't surprised. I thought he might eke out a victory. I wasn't sure, to be honest. It was a 50-50, but yeah, he just wasn't in the fight after 3 rounds. I mean, Teo just took over and was faster and a step quicker and several steps quicker, and he had more energy, had a better engine, and this is a guy coming up from lightweight. Now, there are a couple of questions that have been asked since the fight ended, and that is that, you know, was Josh weight drained? Well, Joe McNally was interviewed by Boxing News on their website, video, not a written interview, and he said no, the weight, he made the weight fine, he was a genuine 140 pounder. I don't know. I mean, it is possible if you've got enough time to get down to a certain weight and to look aesthetically pleasing and as if you're in optimum shape. Definitely it's possible, and for a few rounds you can implement everything because you've got the energy. But the one thing that severe weight loss, even if it's over a long period of time, does is it takes away your engine, it takes away your stamina. And I think it was really striking how little stamina Josh had. And he was exhausted after about 6 or 7 rounds. And by the last third of the fight, he was really just fighting to survive. And I don't mean that disrespectfully to Josh Taylor, because, you know, I was very, very critical of the defeat to Catterall, and it was a defeat as far as I'm concerned. But this is the type of defeat where, you know, he showed a lot. He showed that he's a warrior, Josh, and he hung in there. But he did look like he looked like a 147 fighter boiled down to 140. Whereas Teofimo Lopez looked like a guy who was having, you know, a new lease of life at the higher weight. Now, Josh has got to try and emulate that. I think he's got to go up to 147 now, and he's 32. That extra 7 pounds could be it could be a revelation to him. He could suddenly discover, well, I've got, you know, bags more energy, and I can do this. You know, I can, you know, I'm a step quicker or 2 steps quicker. I'm sharper with my punches. My punches have got more meat on them. I feel great after 10, 12 rounds. You know, it's suddenly you can do everything, not just over 3 rounds, but over the full 12. And the thing about Josh is he's, like I say, he's 32 now, so he hasn't got a great deal of time. He talks about being a 2-weight world champ. Well, I definitely wouldn't throw him into a championship fight yet, but at the same time, he's too well schooled now and too long in the tooth. He's got too much experience to necessitate 3 or 4 warm-up fights. I would say a couple would be fine. And if you look at the top 10, I mean, I think a good comeback fight, just to test the waters at 147 for Josh, would be David Avanesian, because Avanesian's coming off that knockout loss to Terence Crawford, absolutely conclusive, and I think that would be a good fight, a comeback fight for Josh, because Avanesian's very capable, good European level fighter, fringe world, maybe top 15, you know, decent fighter, very good fighter. Other people, I mean, he could. One name that popped into my head was Keith Thurman. Is he still fighting? I don't even know. But stick Josh in with him. He's only got the 1 defeat to Pacquiao. He hasn't, God knows what is going on with Keith Thurman. Has he retired or not? I don't know. But if he wants a fight, if he wants a comeback fight, and Josh wants a comeback fight, why not an excellent crossroads sort of contest? That would be good. If he wants to take on an undefeated fighter, because Josh does like fighting undefeated fighters, Stanionis maybe. Stanionis, I think currently, was he 14-0 or something like that? You know, Imantas, is that his first name? Imantas. Stanionis, good fighter, but again, not absolute elite level. And he's 28, I think, Stanionis, so he's in his prime. If Josh could take his undefeated record, that would be a bit of a statement, and it's a winnable fight. Victor Ortiz Jr.'s out there. I wouldn't go straight in with him. I'd do some, like I say, a bit of testing of the waters. What about Ugas? Ugas got battered by Errol Spence. Maybe, a comeback fight for him and Josh, another crossroads fight. So there are options out there, and I'd have a couple of fights at 147 and then go calling out the champions. The champions, of course, are, let Spence and Crawford deal with their business. And then you've got Boots Ennis, who's floating around on the periphery of world title contention. He's 30-0 at the moment. Terrific talent. I think Boots should be. But in an ideal world, Boots would have the winner of Spence and Crawford if they don't have a rematch. Hector Roca, that'd be quite a good fight, actually. What is he, 23 wins and 1 defeat, something along those lines? Yeah, he'd be okay. He'd be okay for Josh. But I would put Josh in with a top 10er or a top 12 fighter. I don't think there's any need to. I mean, Avanesian's sort of top 15. Avanesian would be a good first fight at 147. And then I'd move up to those, B or B plus level fighters. And then, so when Josh is, 33, maybe so 33, 34 at the most, because he's quite well preserved. He hasn't had a great deal of, he hasn't had many fights, first of all. Was he 19-1 now? But, test the waters. He another aspect of the Teofimo performance was that he hadn't been active. He hadn't fought since the Catterall fight, and of course the other big thing is the training situation, because he left the McGuigans. He had huge success with the McGuigans. Went to Ben Davison, escaped with his titles against Catterall. Decided to part company with Ben Davison. Ben Davison, I think, is actually a very, very good trainer. A lot of people make fun of him, and say things, and they don't like him as a person, so that immediately clouds their judgment. I think he's a very good trainer. McGuigan is excellent. He's on a roll, isn't he, McGuigan? Chris Smith's won a title, and Eddie Scotney at the weekend, and I mean, he's just rocking and rolling. He's got to be considered Britain's best fighter, surely. Britain's best trainer, surely, I'd say, at the moment. Most successful in recent years, anyway. But Joe McNally, is Josh going to stick with Joe McNally? Maybe he will. Joe McNally also trains Liam Smith, doesn't he? Not a high-profile trainer, but from what I've heard from people in the know, who know more about it than I do, he's actually very good, and he gets the best out of his trainers. I'm not sure. I was a bit stunned during the Teofimo fight, because Joe was saying to Josh, I think it was after 10. No, actually, I'll tell you who it was. It was the DAZN commentary team. One of them had a word with Joe McNally and said, do you think Josh needs these last 2 rounds to win the title? And Joe said no. Well, I would say definitely after 10 rounds, Josh needed those two rounds and a couple of knockdowns. As it happens, 2 judges had the fight 115, 113 to Teo. So had Josh won those last 2 rounds, he'd have won the fight on a split decision. So maybe McNally knows more than we do or I do, but maybe he's looking over the shoulder of the of the judges. But I don't think that chopping and changing your trainer it solves anything. I think because you've got to start again. And if he feels that Joe, if he feels comfortable with him and he feels that he's learning stuff and that McNally is the man to get him in optimum shape and is a good tactician, then I don't see the point of throwing the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. I think it's best if he sticks with McNally. Liam Smith's done great with McNally, and for another couple of fights. Okay, if you've had 4, 5, 6 fights with someone and then it's gone a bit stale and you want to freshen it up, I get it. But this is the first fight they had, the Teo fight, and I just don't. I think you should stick with McNally. McNally seems competent. Is he as good a trainer as McGuigan? Is he as good a tactician as McGuigan? Because both McGuigan and Ben Davison are very, very good with tactics. Very good. Does McNally have that type of insight? I don't know. I'd say the jury's kind of out on that particular point. But he knows his way around a ring. He knows what he's doing, McNally. And Josh is a very experienced fighter. He came to Ben Davison as a complete package, and now he's gone to McNally. it's not like he's a raw recruit. You know, McNally knows that if he says something to Josh, Josh can soak it up. Yeah, so I would stay with McNally. I would stay with McNally. But at the third, well, is it the third or the fourth point I wanted to make was that Josh needs to decide, do I still want to fight? Because he must have made a lot of money. He's been an undisputed champ at 140 in a handful of fights. Fantastic. It was 18 fights and he won all 4 belts. Fantastic achievement. Brilliant. And he lost a decision to we'll ignore the Catterall debacle, but he lost to Teofimo Lopez. There's no shame in that. Teofimo Lopez is a good fighter. If he was to walk away, and don't forget he's made money out of the Super 6, he's won that as well. He's proved himself. You know, he hasn't had many fights, but he's proved himself. And he wants to be a 2-weight world champ, which is great. It's another ambition. If he's got the motivation and he's prepared to keep dedicating himself and so on and so forth, because he got married recently. Sometimes in life, as you get a little bit older, you look for other things in life. But if he wants to do it, if he's motivated, carry on doing it, no problem. But if he walked away with his money and he's got his marbles intact, can have a family with his missus, and you move on. You know, his legacy is secure as one of Scotland's finest fighters. Certainly Scotland's best since Ken Buchanan, who was Josh's hero. So, in the past, I've been very critical of. Well, it's not so much I was critical of Josh Taylor. I just hated that Catterall robbery. It was, as I've said before in videos, it is one of the worst decisions, probably top 3 worst decisions I've seen, and I've been watching boxing for 40 whatever years, 45 years, whatever it is. So, but that doesn't mean that I never stop respecting Josh Taylor's skills or him as a person. I mean, he's got some spite in him, Josh Taylor, as he might not want to go out on a defeat. He might want to carry on just to prove the naysayers wrong. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do. What do you think? Leave your comments below as always. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the subscribe button if you don't mind. That'll be real good. Hit the like button. That helps us as well. We want to build the channel up and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. If you could do that, that'd be fantastic. In the meantime, looking forward to reading your comments and I'll answer them. Until then, take care. Bye for now.